the exciting thing on that is like even if our defense is twice as bad and we're giving up 11 points a game,
it's true.
Welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by Graham Coffey and Josh Hancher from Dawg Sports Live. We talk about the 2021 season, NIL, playoff expansion, and the start of spring practice. As always, remember to check out store.mygottapodcast.com to see our latest merch. And you can follow us on social media at My Gotta Podcast. Finally, if you like what you hear, please subscribe, rate, 5 stars obviously, and review the show. If you leave us a review, you just might hear it on an upcoming episode. Now, let's join the conversation in progress.
I don't have to do anything on my end, right?
Yeah, no. This is the easiest start for you, right? Like you don't have to. Right. This is not. You
just show up.
This is not.
You just show up. There's no graphics. There's no running ticker tape.
Yeah. So I don't know. For those listening, if you haven't figured it out, we have some special guests yet again. Second time we've talked to these guys, but first time on My Gotta Podcast officially. So we got the guys from Dawg Sports Live, frequent receivers of dog bones, friends of the show. We got Josh Hancher, aka Dog Stats. We got Graham Coffey, aka Dog Out West. Guys, it's good to have you like officially on My Gotta Podcast.
It's good to be here, man.
This has been yeah, absolutely. It's tons of fun. Like you said, I don't have to do anything. It's unsettling. I'm like looking for buttons to push.
Right. You're usually the doing the production. I'll handle that this evening. Although I'm much more low tech than you are. So
kick back and have a bourbon, Josh, while you're on your off day. Have a bourbon with us.
No midweek bourbons for this guy.
That's okay. That's okay. I must say, as I'm obligated to do so, that I am drinking Old Granddad Bonded, which was a John Tweets / what do we call it? Bulldog Bourbon Social Club recommendation. It's a good one. Anyway,
it's fantastic.
So this is part of what, like, when the season ended, John Powell was like, "We need to have a victory lap, and like we won the Natty, and let's just talk to all of our friends about how awesome this was." And so that's kind of essentially what we want. The main thing we wanted to talk about. I know it's something like we've been waiting. Or for me, I was like waiting for this my whole life. And it was just so special. I know like it's pretty like super random and funny, Graham, when John and I ran into you on the sidewalk after the
that was a blast, man. That was one of my favorite moments of the year, actually, just because
good omens.
And I was with my parents, and they were just like, I don't know, they were like,
are you a celebrity, Graham?
Random dudes that you're like hugging and, jumping up and down on the sidewalk with. That was a whole fun day. But I know I felt like there was some sort of good omen, like you said, John, with that whole meeting. I've actually thought about that like a couple times of, just maybe there was just a feeling after that first game of like, all right, Georgia finally won one of these big games against one of these, perennial CFP teams. And now we're on our way. The problem is that there was another 14 games to play to really bring all of that to fruition. But that first game, I think, changed a lot of perception around how both the fan base felt around the program and probably more so the media. And then it became like, oh, Georgia's legit, actually. And there was a lot of people, I think, been on the fence.
There were two narratives going into the season. It was like, okay, we've got a front-loaded schedule with Clemson, and then it was pretty much smooth sailing. Of course, we didn't know that we were going to be facing, I believe, an undefeated Arkansas and undefeated Kentucky at that point. Mm-hmm. But the schedule was one of those preseason narratives all year long, and it was just like, even, they could just say, even if they lose to Clemson, they're going to get all they got to do is win the SEC. So to win that game, and at the time against the number 2 team in the country, and do it in such a dominating defensive fashion, it was validation to what we thought this team and this season could be. And that's a great part about sports. You can talk about what you're replacing all this defense, and and you've got all this offense returning, and your offense is banged up, and the defense plays lights out. It's one of the best defenses in certainly recent college football history. So, yeah, I mean, in addition to all the other omens of all your friends and seeing it, everybody, I mean, and Georgia fans balling out and showing up at Charlotte, and it was and Chris Smith pick 6.
Yep.
That was pretty cool, dude. Sorry. I didn't even make it 5 minutes without dropping a bad word. Sorry, guys. Earmuffs.
That's okay. Sorry, Carter.
Sorry, Carter.
No, I
don't know that I'll ever forget. I don't know that I'll ever forget Graham's face, though. That is for sure like one of the like things that's just seared into my memory bank for this season is the time that we ran into Graham and literally just walking by him and this both like looking back at each other, and Graham's look on Graham's face was just like, oh.
Yeah. It's like, dude, yeah. I know that was. Yeah.
And then you just randomly embraced this complete stranger.
Well, my wife was like, Jim, who is John hugging?
I know. Yeah. Well, and I got to meet your dad, and, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know my parents were like, oh,
yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great.
It's cool. It's all good. And you know what? We needed JT Daniels. Little did we know the quarterback controversies that were going to transpire the rest of the season.
Yeah. I know. And I think with that game, it was kind of like a microcosm, I think, for sort of the like double-sided fan experience of this Georgia season in a way, because if you were there at the game, it was this really tense game that felt close the whole time. It was close the whole time. Being a Georgia fan, it felt like one of those games where it's like, when's the other shoe going to drop? Like this defense can't hold out forever. Of course they did, but I think like being at that game, there was just so much like jubilation, and I ran into some old college friends and roommates and stuff on the way out, and everybody was just so pumped. And I remember like all these Clemson kids and fans, like they were just stunned. It was like they had not fathomed the possibility that Georgia was going to win that game, I think. And then as soon as I got back to my hotel room, like I fire up Twitter and it's like, the offense sucks, And I think Dawg Stats over here was like, the offense sucks. I'm just so disappointed in the offense or whatever. And I was like, the offense did suck that night, in fairness, right? But I also was like, I feel like this is what we went back and forth on kind of all year, was trying to be in the moment of enjoying a national title run while also acknowledging like this whole quarterback thing. And I think there was a lot of questions about the offense that people had that I personally never felt were totally fair, just because of, how efficient Georgia was in games when the game was actually close. But yeah, it was that constant, like there was constantly something trying to pull your attention away from just enjoying the fact that Georgia was on this incredible run, and, Devontae Wyatt and Jordan Davis were wrecking people and all the fun things that were happening. And so I think kind of depending on who you are and how you function, you either blocked it out or got way too caught up in it. But I don't know that very many people at all kind of measured the two things properly. And I would include myself in that.
I mean, the sin that I will confess against would be like, like it was all about beating Alabama. It was like this national championship was going to go through Alabama, and it was like, okay, we JT's hurt, and we've got Stetson. He's playing great. We've seen this story, and then lo and behold, we couldn't beat Alabama the first time, thank God. So I mean, hindsight's 2020, and I think that certainly I would be guilty of just those narratives of like, we got to have that quarterback, and looking at the stats, whatever it is, and we got our asses handed to us, and there it is again. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this whole show.
It's okay.
Sorry, Carter.
I've been so good so far, just for the record. Like, I just want to pat myself on the back.
I was like going to put
you're minding your P's and Q's.
I know. I did 55 minutes live on Twitter yesterday without dropping any expletives.
Dawg Stats is going to dog stat.
Golf clap.
So
but this is what's fun about it. It's like reliving it, and certainly, I was, my anxiety was there all year long on the offense for sure. And
well, I remember you had a bit of a turning point at some point, though, right? Because I remember, like, and then because I've said this,
Was it when the clock hit 0-0 in the national championship game?
Well, before that, aside from that, but like statistically, because I've always said that I just like ride on emotion. But Josh, I know you're like very much into the numbers and you're looking for things. I feel like there was a point again pre-Alabama, but like I mean, you picked us right in the SEC championship game. Because like there were things that you did see in the numbers where the offense was. I don't think it was as maybe it's not like so much explosiveness, but like EPA,
it was super.
Like you felt right?
The offense was crazy efficient for the entire season after the Clemson. I mean, just stupid efficient. To the point of like everyone talks about garbage time was like one of the hashtags you could put on our season because so many of those games were between as outstanding as the defense was playing and as quickly as the offense could put up some points. There was just like it was you haven't played anybody at that point. So we were blowing through, and there were so if you were going to filter out garbage time, there were so few meaningful drives, like Graham was talking about, you're looking at such a small section of the game where it was competitive. Tennessee was one of those games where, they came down and scored, on a long drive and in Georgia, it was back and forth for the first quarter and a half, which was probably the closest game all year until the SEC championship game. And still like we were just crazy efficient. And I don't know, like I definitely felt like I was all in on the offense, but I'm still was waiting to see if JT was going to play. I mean, I'm not going to try to deny that I did not expect JT to come out and at some point when the chips were all in and I'll be loud wrong again. I promise.
Yeah. It's the best way to be wrong, right? Like end up with an Eddie.
Well,
when you didn't see him in the SEC championship, like, how did you feel after that game?
Oh,
dude,
I was mad.
Josh, talk a little bit about your SEC champ. Like, I don't think actually I've never gotten you to talk about this on our show, even. But you were despondent. Like you were in the most negative place I've ever seen you after that game.
Well, because you were there, right? Like you went to the game, right?
I was there at the game. Okay. So I was there at the game, and it was, and the thing about it was, I was still in until till it was probably until my heart was like, was overruled by my head. So no, I mean, actually, honestly, I've been crushed way more brutal than that game. I actually walked out of there. I mean, I think you're also looking through that glass of the stupid, where I was afraid that we'd be left out of the playoff too, and I was actually
I forgot about that actually. Yeah.
Welcome to Jim's conspiracy theory.
No, so I'm the comedian or whatever with the strings on the board. Yeah, no,
always sunny.
Yeah,
always sunny. No, but it stunk, man. We just got our heads handed to us again by Alabama, and I don't like it. It was awful. I don't know how anybody if you didn't feel awful, I don't know how you couldn't feel like. I mean, and definitely, Graham, I will say this, listening to your analysis and reading a lot of other people's analysis. Yeah, it's like we played our worst game of the season and we were in the playoffs, so there was no reason to think that there was reasonable expectation that wasn't going to happen again. I mean, I was, but yeah, it sucked. I don't know how you couldn't not think it stunk to get beaten down by Alabama.
Yeah, I'd say it definitely stunk, but like at the same time, that was one of those games that's like, I feel like when you fast forward 5, 6, 7, 10 years or whatever, and look back on the Kirby Smart regime, that loss, I have a feeling is going to come back and be like one of those catalyst moments where, he'll always be able to point back to that game and point at all these NFL guys, which, we haven't even talked about that yet, but like all these guys that are projected to be first round draft picks. He's going to point at that game and say, look, these guys were all NFL draft picks. And, some of them are probably going to be, Pro Bowlers in their careers multiple times. And he'll look back and be able to point to that game and say they weren't ready. this is what happens when you get ready. And for the next month, he prepared them and they prepared themselves. And I have a feeling he's going to be able to get a lot of buy-in off of that. That he's going to get a lot of mileage out of that game.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that, but that is a really good kind of motivational thing to point back on. I mean, I also think that game, what bothered me about it, but also kind of what left me positive for the playoff and what was to come, was Georgia came out and ran a totally different defensive scheme than it had run all year. And I thought that was crazy because I thought to myself, like, you've had the best points per game, by the standard of points per game, you've had the best defense in modern college football history by a decent margin, and you've decided to reinvent the wheel in game 13.
Yeah, let's just change it up.
But you want to talk conspiracy theories? I think that Kirby knows and knew as well as anybody, no one gets the benefit of the doubt like Alabama. And once Oklahoma State lost to Baylor that afternoon, I honestly think that Alabama, if they had played that game, 4-point loss by Alabama, probably still goes to the playoff. And you've already showed your hand. So I think it's important. I'm not saying Georgia threw the game or anything like that, but they definitely, I'm telling you as like the guy that tries to break this stuff down on some level. I'm not, a coach or anything like that, but it's like, I'm telling you schematically, it was very, very different than what they'd done all year.
Notre Dame's getting in, though. 2-loss Alabama's not jumping Notre Dame, though.
Bull crap. No way.
No way. They're
dude.
not. They're not.
Absolutely.
No.
Notre Dame was not ever going into the play. I don't want to rehash all
Brian
that.
Brian Kelly had already quit.
Brian Kelly was gone, dude. That was
all the more reason. That was one more reason for them to put him in.
Not really.
Well,
no.
we also didn't talk about that. You had our coaching staff going. Dan Lanning was interviewing, right?
I think there was a flu going. That's the only thing.
There was a flu going through the D line too. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
That would explain the Jordan Davis clip, right?
The Jordan Davis clip was the most telling.
Yeah.
Well, and Trevon Walker, and I think there was multiple guys for sure.
I mean, I legit was like getting mad watching the game and like, why aren't we doing what Josh and Graham talked about on Dawg Sports Live on defense? Like, what is this defense?
It's the only time I've been like, maybe they actually should have listened to us.
But so, Josh, you went to back-to-back games. So then you turn around and you went to the Orange Bowl, right?
Yes.
So I am curious. Was it hard to muster that up?
No. It was a first off, go to the Orange Bowl. That place is unbelievably awesome place to see a game. Like I was waiting to walk into kind of a dumpy stadium and it was beautiful. I mean, and the field, it was gorgeous. I had such a good time. I was invited by my friend John at Gators Haters on the Twitter, and he's a die. He actually should be Dawg Stats or in his own blog. I would cede him my credentials right now. But no, it was great. We took our kids, and it was just a hell of a lot of fun. Nice. And
you're good.
It was awesome. It was really, really fun. And I felt like I was playing with house money at that point. I mean, we played Michigan one other time or two other times. I mean, it's like, and that was as a kid, I was growing up. Michigan, Notre Dame. Those were the teams you wanted to play. And that's, we can talk about the old school bowl games, but we never got a chance to play those teams. We were always stuck playing some random team. And, it was like in Michigan, here they were. And that was awesome. It was, and the way to come out of the gates in that game was just awesome. It was so much fun. That's the most fun I've ever had. Go from the SEC championship to the Orange Bowl. It was a blast. I was glad actually I got to go to both.
Was it like jaw dropping surprise for you in the stadium that we started off like that? Or
no. I mean, it was more like affirmation actually that, we were, it didn't tell me that I wasn't any more confident about Alabama, but it was like that we deserved to be there. We were clearly one of the best two teams in the country. And the way we manhandled Michigan was not surprising as it was affirming.
Yeah.
Yep. That's amazing. That's really cool. I didn't even think about that. Like that, the people that went to the SEC like immediately had to turn around and go to the Orange Bowl. Like, and how the two like opposite ends of this dog the
Right.
dog fandom spectrum.
Yeah. No, well, and I mean, I thought that game too was like, I mean, I think for us maybe as like a show / podcast, like it felt a little bit like, okay, we're not insane, you know? And I think it probably felt that way for a lot of Georgia fans because it was like, all right, like this team that we did see, you know, a month ago in Atlanta that we were all sure like that's not what we saw all year. We're right, you know? And I think that it kind of also sort of informed the opinion going into the national title game of like, this is what it looks like when you know, Georgia plays their style of football and they do it healthy. And that game, like I thought it was just fun because I thought Todd Monken, that was probably the best moment that he's had since he's been at Georgia was the first half of that game. The way that they attacked the edges, like everything that, you know, you felt like, okay, you could do this or that or whatever. Or like if I was playing PlayStation, this is how I would attack like this type of thing. Like, and then Todd Monken went out and did it and Georgia executed it. And, you know, they also just kind of like pulled the tricks out, you know, I mean, on two consecutive drives, you've got the Brock Bowers lining up at left tackle and catching a touchdown pass. And then you've got McIntosh, you know, throwing a halfback pass for a touchdown. And it was like, I felt like all year Monken had kind of had the governor on the playbook. And I had often wondered about the SEC championship game if there was like a moment in that game where he was like, oh, you know, I'm about to call this play. And they were like, let's save that one. Like, we're going to see these guys again, you know? And then by that point, yeah. So it was fun.
And I mean, kudos to you, Graham, because I mean, like, I don't know if you, the listeners for y'all's podcast, watch our show, and I know you guys are huge supporters of it, but
they for sure watch your show.
the thing about it is what Graham does is he just is encyclopedic, which how, and if he doesn't know it before, the amount of effort he puts into prepping for a team that we're going to play. But I think that was so fun because we had a couple of weeks to do it. We had and we talked about it. We broke it down pretty in depth, but we knew every player on Michigan's team, specifically the offense versus the defense, because everyone's talking about the defense and the two defensive ends that Michigan had. But, you know, Graham broke it down and had the secondary and the linebackers. And and so much of that played out. And just like Graham was going to say it, I mean, I fill in and around the edges with the stats and can pull the plays. And that was a lot of fun. And Graham did a great job. And I was, as I was watching it, I can, my son who's 13 years old, we're in the end zone, the Georgia end zone. I'm just like, I could just see the formations, like, watch this, see this. And I was like, this is what we're going to do here. And he thought I was a genius. I'm like, no, I just, that's awesome. It's just Graham.
No, that's kind of you to say. That's really kind of you.
Yeah, the end zone vantage point's a great spot to sit, see everything unfold. That's where our season tickets are in Georgia. That's where I was sitting for the Natty too. So
nice. No, well, and I also thought that like, I want to give some credit to Michigan fans for being like, I think all the things that, and sorry, Chris Marler, if you ever hear this, but like all the things that Alabama fans, for the most part, are not, like I just, as soon as that matchup was announced, like there was some people that are Georgians but have Michigan ties that, kind of reached out or like shouted out some stuff on Twitter. And like, I felt like with the month that we had between those games, like we really got to know some of the people in their fan base a little bit. I did a show with one of the guys from MGO blog, Seth Fisher, who's great and kind of does a similar thing to what I do for Michigan. And like, they just were all so like excited to be there. And nobody was overly modest of like, oh, you guys are just going to run over us. But like, nobody was also overly boisterous of like, we're going to beat the crap out of you guys. And like, I felt like of all the like matchups that I've seen Georgia have with a kind of a blue blood college football program of similar stature in my lifetime that I remember, like that was the one where I most probably enjoyed the fan interaction. And Notre Dame people, they were great too. Like for the most part, they were great hosts. Yeah. But Yeah, I enjoyed that, and it excited me for kind of some of those matchups in the future, or if we do see playoff expansion and probably see more blue bloods every year is what that's going to equal, right? Like, I think that's exciting to try and I'd love to play USC and have that experience or whatever. So, it kind of made me hunger more of those intersectional matchups.
That was a
Yeah.
That was a pro segue there next to
Yeah,
our
that
bullet
was-
list.
Yeah, that was that was pretty nice.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, good job.
We could go ahead and do that because we could always kind of wrap up with man, remember the time we won the Natty and it was pretty awesome. But
Do you guys still wake up every morning and are like, oh yeah, we won the Natty?
It took me it took me at least 7 to 10 days.
Yeah,
to let it soak in.
I do wake up every morning.
bam.
yeah. Okay, so this is we're an audio medium, but I will describe over my right shoulder, I've got my Sports Illustrated with Stetson Bennett on the cover, kissing the Natty Trophy. Over my left shoulder, I've got the AJC book, Top Dogs, and then right below both of those are both the field edition of the AJC and the special edition. I bought everything.
Death to the BCS.
I do have that. That's over my right shoulder. That's also still here. That's still here. That stays in the office. That was pretty awesome. I have all the things. I bought all the things. My birthday was in February, and I told my wife, "Do not buy me anything for my birthday. I'm buying whatever the heck I want as far as national championship merchandise. I'm just going on a spending spree."
Good for you.
So
spent way too much money.
Yeah, I mean,
it just stopped. I was watching it.
Yeah,
it had just stopped. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than the one time when John and I actually our national championship review. I think we're about 15 minutes in when I realized I had never started recording. We had to start over. So if the opening of that one sounded a little stale, it's because we were trying to remember what we had already said.
The content that never was.
You guys probably lost the best 15 minutes of your careers as podcasters too.
Obviously.
That's how it always goes, right?
Clearly.
Well, our favorite pastime is texting each other 20 minutes after the show is done. Oh, I forgot to say this.
Classic move. Classic. Always do that. I guess I will just say, before we move on, any other lasting. I don't know. I guess we didn't talk about the national championship game itself that much. I guess the only thing I guess kind of Josh for you because I know Graham you were there, but Josh you were watching on TV. How nerve wracking. I guess I put it this way: how deep into the game did it take for you to feel comfortable? Because for me it wasn't until Ringo. Was that it, or was it later?
No,
even
it was Ringo for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was the way it played out was great until the fumble. It was just everything was not according to plan, but it was we were in it, and it just felt like, man, I lost it for a moment. I was pretty good. I was actually pretty good until that moment, and then I lost it, and then and Stetson Bennett is just God. Just came right back out. It was just something that I had never seen in my lifetime from Georgia or much of any football team I'd ever cared about. For them to just go right down the field and to see, it was just that was life changing. That we're not going to screw this up. We're not going to just lay down. It was awesome. Which almost made it that much more special. It was we had to pick ourselves off the mat, and it was it wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be a blowout, and friggin' that pass to AD was just. It was on the offsides call, and we did exactly what we were supposed to do. And it tells you right there. Hell, that guy was coached up.
Yeah,
God forbid he was coached up. Who knew?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I for me, it was fun because I went to 2 games this year. I went to the first game at Clemson in Charlotte, and I went to the national championship game. And I was with my dad. I know, isn't that fun or funny or just kind of weird? But
that is really funny, actually. You didn't actually go to Athens.
I know. Well, and I could get on a diatribe about why neutral site games kind of ruin home schedules, but we won't do that. But it was fun because, I mean, my dad and I, I'm 32, and like a lot of fathers and sons, obviously our relationship has changed from, father-son to more like really good friends, best friends kind of deal. And, truthfully, like there was a point in time in my life, probably like a lot of people have with their parents, where I didn't talk to my parents very much, and we didn't get along very well. And I don't know, there were some things that I was doing maybe they didn't agree with or whatever. And I will say that, like, what's that?
No, just kidding.
Well, no, what I was going to say though is just like I think that looking back on my relationship with both my parents, but more so my dad, like even when we couldn't really agree on much of anything, or didn't really maybe get along that well, the one thing we could always talk about civilly was Georgia football, right? Like that was always the one thing that we could chat about, and be engaged, and it didn't feel awkward or whatever. And I'm talking like a decade ago when that sort of period was going on. But to go from that to sort of having that change in our relationship has been really cool. And to get to just like go and hang out with him for a weekend in Charlotte, and go and hang out with him for a weekend in Indy. I remember before kickoff of the Clemson game, he looked at me and he was like, "It's fun to play in big games. It's just fun to be in these environments." And it was funny because we're sitting there and it's like and I'm sure he didn't remember this at all, but like it's fourth quarter, and we had just gone up by 1 point, and we had just kicked the ball back to Alabama. And he looked at me and he was like, "It's fun to play in these big games, and it is, and it's like Georgia finally came through on that big stage. But for me, what was kind of interesting is doing our show has made me, I think, a little more analytical and a little less emotional about Georgia football than I used to be. But when Chris Smith had his pick six in Charlotte, I actually got a little like choked up because I got the chance to know him, and he's just such a good kid, good guy, super kind, kind of does things the right way or whatever, or however you want to phrase that. But he went, from being on the bench and fighting for his spot, and then LeCount goes down and he makes the most of that opportunity. But, that Clemson game is probably the first real big stage that he had ever started in, and he made that play, and it totally changed that game. And I was like, at one point I was like, "Oh my God, that's Chris." Right. And so to kind of go from that, like that was the time in the year prior to the Ringo interception where I'd had the most like emotional output. And then, as Ringo's like going across the goal line, I kind of had like a similar moment or whatever, and got a little choked up. And, it was interesting because I looked around as that game was sort of ending, and I thought that Georgia was fine up 8, actually. I thought the defense just wasn't going to bend because they hadn't given up a full drive all night other than the Stetson fumble. But that was the icing on the cake, right? And, like, looking around, and one of my best friends, his dad, and our dads are really good friends, was sitting with us. And, like, his parents were huge Bulldogs, and I used to talk to them about Georgia when I was 10 years old. And they've both since passed, right? But, like, he was getting choked up talking about like, "Oh man, my mom would have loved this." And, random people that I had never met, a lot of them were talking about like, "Oh, so-and-so that, is no longer with us," like how they would have loved that moment. And I thought that's what was so cool about winning a national title for the first time in 41 years is like Alabama at this point, right? Like I highly doubt, when they win a title, the fans are like, "Oh, so-and-so would have loved to be here for this," right? Because like they just do it all the time. And I think for us, it was just like such a different experience. And I think that there was a little moment there for a lot of people where it sort of tied you back to people that you love and memories that you have with those people that are around Georgia football. And it kind of, for me, just drove home like what we're doing here really doesn't always have that much to do with football, right? Like it's It's more about relationships and friends and family and something to gather around. And I think that's what makes college football unique and special, and probably college football in the South particularly unique and special. So that's my little soapbox. I hope that made sense.
I don't know,
that
Graham.
was awesome.
If I'm not around in 5 years and we're winning our 5th consecutive national championship, I'd like you guys to all say, "Man, JP would really love to be here."
I mean, I will. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, it's a little different than. I mean, it's just the first one. Like, I don't know about you guys.
It's never. I mean,
it'll never feel the same. I can promise you that. It'll feel awesome, but it's not going to feel the same. And like, I grew up listening to stories about Herschel and all of that. And dude, I remember walking out of that 2012 SEC championship game when Connolly caught that pass right in front of me and just being like, it's never going to happen. We're never going to see this, And I felt that way for a long time, man. I did.
Well, that's the one that like Josh, you said earlier, being at this SEC championship game, that I think you said that you had experienced worse. And that was 2012 for me. Like, I got, and like I was way too old to get this upset, but like, because I had within that, because you knew we were going to beat Notre Dame, or that whoever was going to beat Notre Dame. Like, that game was the title game. And like, when in that game, when there was the interception that got overturned, and then we kept going, and then like Lynch, gets right down there. Like, I said to myself, I was like, this is it. And then when it didn't happen,
you didn't say that.
I was like,
did you know?
I thought it. Hey, John went and shot off fireworks right when Ringo got the pick. So thankfully,
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
90 seconds left in the game when I got back. I was like, wait, what happened?
But I told myself I would never get that upset. I told myself I would never get that upset about a football game again. And I have held true to that. Like, for me, 17, like, it hurt and I was there, but it didn't hurt as much as 12 because I just didn't let it. But anyways, now I don't, I mean, that's all part of the road to where we are now. And like, I think part of what makes it so special. So
yeah,
that was awesome. So another segue thing that you did mention in there, like, so this was, season 1 of NIL. And the only thing I'll add to your Chris Smith pick 6 was that when that happened, I got into y'all's DMs and was like, Christopher MFN Smith. Yeah. I was so happy because you guys had done that with him. So I don't know, like, did NIL do anything close to what anyone thought it would be this year? And I guess, I don't know, like I know, Graham, you mentioned like that you guys got to know him a bit through that. I don't know, just like any anecdotes about that at all?
I mean, I think just, I got to know him a little bit and got to know his family a little bit, and just like, I mean, I'm not going to go so far as to say we're like friends or whatever, but I mean, I've enjoyed about that relationship is that he and I don't really talk about football, and I think that's nice, and I think it NIL could be really good in that sense in terms of kind of just breaking down some of the barriers between athletes and fans, as long as it's done in a healthy way that's productive for both parties. But yeah, I think that this year some of the NIL stuff was a little more like wholesome because it kind of kicked in right before the season. But I mean, Tennessee just signed an $8 million contract with a quarterback, right? Like that Athletic article came out last week. I read that. Nico Iamaleava or whatever his name is. So it's like that's going to change college football dramatically. And it actually makes me even happier that Georgia went ahead and won this national title, because they kind of did it in a period where the sport's still going to feel familiar. I think when, the 5-star quarterbacks are signing $10 million contracts before they show up on campus, and the playoff 16
and transfer
teams,
into South Carolina.
And then exactly. And then all of that, like it's gonna change. And I think, the pendulum always swings. Right now it's getting way out on the edge, and something will kind of bring it back closer to the center. But it's going to be fascinating for a little while. The games are still going to be the games, and they're going to be fun and all of that. But it has turned, I think, college football into even more of a year-round sport, which it already was becoming.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's going to change. Like, this is the first year, and I think I saw a story that said the average NIL deal was less than $300 per player. If you average it out, and of course, that's wildly, dispersed amongst.
That's a lot of kids to average out.
Yeah, but I mean, and
Jackson
certainly it's going
Muschamp.
to change. Yeah, it's going to change and morph and all that sort of stuff. But it's like I still think that from a sporting aspect, you still got to build a culture. You still got to coach. You still got to execute. You still got to get up and do the things that it takes to be a champion. And just signing a quarterback to an $8 million deal, you don't need to look in much further than professional franchises that throw money after money. I mean, in Los Angeles Rams certainly got it done, but a lot of teams,
The Cowboys haven't.
fail. Yeah, the Cowboys haven't. And it's like Los Angeles Dodgers haven't. It's more. You still got to have. You still got to have the Jimmies and the Joes, but you also got to have the guys calling the X's and O's, and what's most exciting about it is, and all this turmoil and all this big money being thrown around from Lincoln Riley to, we've got our guy, and it's like, there's not a Georgia fan that doesn't think that Kirby. I mean, if you told him, came out tomorrow and said we're going to give him a lifetime contract, that there's not a fan in Dog Nation that wouldn't be absolutely over the moon about that. So we've got the guy that feels like we do, about these. I mean, I think he hurts as when he loses a game like we hurt. Yeah. And so NIL is certainly going to change things, but Georgia's going to get done. And Kirby we trust, as one would say on the Twitter.
Nice.
As we would say and have been saying on the podcast.
Who would say
we're
that?
starting to make t-shirts. Anyway,
You guys should make t-shirts.
So do we? I know, okay. So the first time we talked to you guys, well, not the first we talked to you guys. The first time we talked to you guys in a recorded format, we were basically straight up just talking about playoff expansion because, and actually when we talked about that, I think
the lost episode of Dawg Sports Live.
Oh yeah, well that was
the Wetzel.
But the one before that was the Wetzel. The one where the book that kind of spurned that happening. At that point, it was still speculation, right? Like they hadn't announced that it was quote going to happen, but now that's been dialed back. Like, I mean, I know Josh, like you definitely want it to happen, like, but
yes.
I don't know how far out we are from it. I don't like. Are they ever going to agree on actually?
Well, the contract expires after the 2025 season, so something has to be renegotiated and rewritten. So something has to get done now. Maybe they just do an extension or whatever, but I want something to dramatically change the sport on how we crown our national champion.
Yeah, and I mean, we could beat that horse, but because I'm like contract. I like. Some might say regress. I'd rather go backwards. What, Graham? I think you're itching to say something.
Well, I mean, I think. Tell me 1 year in the last. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like, when have we gotten it wrong since we went to 4 teams? Where the champion.
2018.
What about 2018?
We were one of the 4 best teams, and we didn't get in.
I know, but I don't think that Georgia team was winning a national title. I'm trying to say, where have we been in a situation?
Yes, because you're playing 4 teams, and there have been 3
don't
games,
lose by
and there's a
30
winner.
on the road at LSU, and you'll be in the playoff. Is I think the moral of the story. But I'm just saying, I feel like we've gotten. I feel like Georgia was by far the dominant best team all year, and the loss to Alabama
for sure.
That still didn't affect them from winning a national title, and I think that's good. But I think the reason it didn't is because they beat Clemson, and so it's like I think we're in a spot where there's a good balance of the regular season matters, but the best teams aren't going to cost themselves a chance at a championship if they slip up once, but if you slip up twice, like we still haven't seen a 2-team team or a 2-loss team make the playoff, and I think that might come. I guess it just depends on the surrounding circumstances.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just want less subjectivity and more objectivity. And like I've said it before, a tournament or a playoff is not always going to crown, air quotes, the best team. But it's going to be exciting and it's going to be awesome. And the team that wins however many it takes to win in a row, 3, 4, or whatever it is going to be the champion. And that's that. And I just don't see a problem with that. I was going to say, Jim, you're talking about going back. It's like, I mean, come on, dude, look at the polls. I mean, we want Jeff Schultz picking the national champ here.
Yeah,
I'm talking about since we've had the 4-team.
Chaos.
Jim wants to go
I
pole
think the
dancing.
4-team is the best. I'm not totally serious about that. Sometimes I think about it.
No.
I think we should go back to the BCS.
I think that once you get beyond the four teams, it's just going to get so watered down. Like I actually believe. I mean, call me crazy, but like what you just said, Josh, was like it's not going to be the best team. I want it to be the best team. Like, am I alone in that sentiment? Like,
but
I want it to be the best team.
It doesn't guarantee that there's not going to be the best team. But
let's just put it this way: like, what was the team? One of the Brady teams that won the Super Bowl, like as a wild card or something like that. Like that.
There's been plenty.
They weren't the
Eli Manning.
The Eli Manning Giants team that beat
them
like
9-7,
right?
And one of the Heinz Ward teams came as a 6th seed from Pittsburgh.
Yeah. I want no part of that. Give me the best team.
We've done this before. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I want, actually. So.
Well, but what I'll say though is, I think I don't. Unless like, and I've seen people kind of bring this up on Twitter where it was like, oh, I'm really glad the NFL like lets their 500 teams play for a championship or whatever. And it's like, I wish college football would do that. It's like, well, when college football has a salary cap and the worst teams get the number 1 pick of 5-star recruits every year, then I think that system makes more sense. Like if we go to 8, I can live with that, but like 12 and beyond, I think is too many.
16.
I think that's too many. Just because I don't think in any given year there's more than 3 or 4 teams that can win the national title in college football. Not at least as it exists right now. NIL could change that for sure. Like NIL may work as a talent distribution sort of mechanism for the entire sport to where there is more parity. And if that's the case, then I'm open to it, because I do think
you're going to need it. You're going to need it at that point. If there is actually parity, you're going to need something to spread it out, because if there is true parity, I mean, it goes back to, Bear Bryant, signing 110 players. It's I mean, and I hope that, sort of it's not a free market by any stretch of the imagination, but I hope we don't have to mandate parity. I hope that it just comes out sort of, there's enough money going around that, I think certainly you and I, Graham, agree that the players deserve somewhat of a cut, if not their fair share of a cut. And if you can be a 5-star wide receiver and go play at Missouri and stay in a big fish in a small pond and get paid, and then that's going to make Missouri better. And that's instead of just going and being, one of the 3 wide receivers that doesn't play in the national championship for Alabama and they cry about it.
Zing.
So I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited to see. Of course I want to see Georgia win, every 5-star come to Georgia, but I think parity's coming, and I think you're right, Graham. I think NIL is going to be a game changer. And with that, I think you're going to need sort of a new dynamic on how we, crown our champion, especially if we've got super conferences. And, if you've got Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas, Alabama, Auburn, LSU in the same conference, versus Georgia, Florida, and there's no way you're going to get through that in this 14 playoff and be able to just subjectively say, yeah, this one team deserves to get in, or these two teams. It's going to have to spread out.
Well, I think that right there is where I really do want to go back, where it's like SEC is too big. It was already too big. I don't even like 14. 16, I think I really
bring back Swanee, bring back Tulane.
Well, yeah. I liked 12. I thought 12 was perfect, but anyways. But I have seen. I mean, there are some people have kind of floated the idea of like when the SEC goes to 16, stage your own playoff. Like I don't know. We'll
I don't think it's that far away. I mean, I think there's a possibility that you're going to see, kind of some sort of schism within college football, and it would be purely speculative to guess what that would look like. But I think there's, 30 to 40 schools out there that are really serious about being really good at football. And I think if you put them kind of, within a league of their own and had some sort of pod system, so you had some traditional matchups, and then you gave people 12 games of Power 5 versus Power 5 football, it would be entertaining. I don't know, though. It's like I do still take issue with the idea of like a 12-team playoff. You're basically taking the schools that are best. So by that logic, you're probably taking the rosters that have the highest percentage of future professionals on them, and you're adding, you're creating what could be an 18-game season. And I don't like the idea of like for running backs putting that much more wear on them. All of a sudden, you're going to see running backs washing out of the NFL at like 25. I mean, it's already like 26, 27, but it's just going to get worse and worse.
Right. And the only problem with it by contracting which teams are the best or whatever is that the television contracts are so big that they need that content, and they need 25, 30 games on Saturday to spread amongst ESPN, Fox, and CBS to pay all those teams. And if you're going to just take your ball and go home, then that changes the financial dynamic of how the sports run. So the reason it's so popular, the reason it's so big is because there are 130 teams contributing to it and contributing to that content, whether you're watching Maction on Tuesday or, Pac-12 After Dark or Hawaii at like, chasing all your bad bets all day. So, but those games have to, those games have to matter.
No, I mean, but they can still, I mean, they don't matter now. Like no team from the MAC is making the college football playoff.
But if you pull the SEC or a super conference thereof out of that world, then I just think that dynamic changes dramatically, and that it truly will be an NFL, and no one watches Division II. I mean, they're not going to say no one, but no one watches. They may watch the FCS championship, but they're not going to watch the 6 games, 7, 8, 9, 10 games leading up to that, and that's what's going to happen to a lot of teams. They're just not going to. They're not going to be desired to be on TV, and they're going to spread them out. You're going to have games on Thursday night. You're going to to spread out that money. It's just it's already happening, but that would accelerate it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm kind of like you, Graham. Like I'm happy with 4. I wanted 4. I was super excited when it happened. I had a little pause there for a little while. But I guess, I don't know, when you're national champions, you get happy about everything again. So I like it the way it is.
I mean, depending on the year.
Really quick. Right, exactly. Yeah, well, like 17, I hated it because I was like, Alabama didn't even win their division, so that was kind of.
Yeah, seriously.
But, I know we're getting late. I did want to hit on the fact that spring practice starts tomorrow and just see, we can kind of round robin. Is there anything you guys are kind of hoping to get out of spring practice?
Yeah, I want to quarterback. I got my notes here. Let me see.
Oh, Jesus.
Here we go. I want to find a competent quarterback. I want Monken to coach the offense, and I want us to pass more. I'm out.
Nice. Josh out.
That was
Josh out.
I'm not out. Actually, I got a lot more to say.
He's still here.
I am excited to see the kind of what the quarterback room looks like. I'm excited to get a glimpse at Stockton. I saw the really cool video of Brock Vandegrift throwing a slant against air that everyone's super excited about. Let's see how that looks, against defense in a scrimmage situation.
Is that the modern Is that the modern day version of Happy Talk? the recruits training at their training facilities, or the players training at their training facilities? No.
It seems that way. I mean, everyone looks really good in those videos in the indoor practice facilities. But I think
the fact that he's being coached by Rick, but the fact that he's being coached by Coach Rick is also super fun too.
That is, I do think, exciting, and I think that's a good sign for him. And I think it's cool that Monken and Kirby and Rick have worked out some sort of arrangement where, like Rick wouldn't be working with their quarterbacks if they didn't want him to be working with their quarterbacks. So I think that's cool that he's like still kind of involved in that way with the program. But I think like for Georgia, the key things in my mind are obviously, how do you replace maybe the best front seven in college football history? I don't think you can replace it, but I think you can, I'm interested to see what some of these young 5-star guys that have been in the program for a year or two look like, because that's going to be a huge factor on whether or not there's a legitimate shot at a repeat run for UGA. And then,
I mean, the exciting thing on that is like, even if our defense is twice as bad and we're giving up 11 points a game.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, the secondary is going to be, I think, very salty. It's just, I don't know how you replace Nakobe, but I also said like, well, we're never going to see a Roquan Smith again. And then like 4 years later, Nakobe showed up. So recruiting feels a lot.
I'll ask, you mentioned the secondary. Like, you guys remember like preseason when we were all talking about how the secondary was going to be like the weak point, and funny? Now we have, and then we ended the season with a player that literally, if the other team had thrown the ball into the ground, would have had a better passer rating.
Yeah, against Darian Kendrick.
I forgot about that.
That's a wild PFF. But I'll tell Graham here, it's like that the secondary was certainly looked great because of the front seven. There was, and that's what we said. The key to it was getting pressure on the opposing quarterbacks, and that's what they did for 15 games.
Yep.
Yeah. Well,
I would agree with that.
The only other nugget I'll throw out for spring practice is I want to know what's going to happen on the O-line. Like, I know we have 2 bookend tackles in McClendon and Jones. We've got SVP at center. Schaefer is gone, and Warren Erickson, I think, he's DGD. He plays hard and all that stuff, but I think there's been some times where he's kind of held back what Georgia wants to do in the run game, just not quite being able to get around the edge on some of those kind of pull plays. And with Searles being hired, I think Georgia's only going to run more and more of these kind of counter type plays where they're pulling guards. And so I'm curious to see if like Amarius Mims gets a shot there, or sort of what that's all going to look like, because I think there's too much talent in that offensive line room for Georgia not to dominate almost every team but Alabama, they should be dominating up front. And they didn't. Missouri pushed Georgia around in the interior line last year, which shouldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't if we leave spring practice without, a good 6-man or 5-man, that we don't know if, Mims and Broderick Jones, both those guys aren't sticking around unless they're clear, clear contributors, if not, designated starters. Am I wrong there, Graham?
I don't think so. I think Jones is locked in at left tackle at this point. He played there in the national championship game. But yeah, Mims, you got to find a spot for him because he's too talented to sit around for. He's not sitting around for.
Is Radledge?
Radledge will be back. He'll be back. Yeah. So
is he practicing this spring though? Like, is he healthy like now? Or
I don't think he's ready.
I haven't heard.
What I read is that he's like close, but he's not ready for like full contact practice.
God, you just listen to those names we just rattled off, dude. We are
so stacked.
And Kirby, we trust.
That doesn't even go into like Lindbergh and like some. There's a like stupid amount of talent in there, and that's why it's. I'm sorry, but it's like if somebody's not cutting it, then pull their out of the game. God, I did it right at the end, but yeah, if somebody's not cutting it, Pulled him out of the game.
Carter's long given up on it, man. Long given up.
Sorry, Carter.
That's funny. Sorry, Carter. We haven't even mentioned the fact that we're getting the band back together. Like I have my conspiracy theory is that he's gonna win back-to-back natties with Rick's staff.
My conspiracy theory is like they've got like some sort of like off-campus house that they all like hang out at and hide from their families and like drink together before going and seeing Pylon downtown.
Instead of like the Heisman Nissan house, maybe we should do the Ford F-150 house with those guys.
Oh yes. What's the bar where Kirby and Bobo like got arrested back in the day that Josh
Foxes.
you said you used to go to? Foxes.
Yeah,
Josh's
Foxes,
spot. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my spot.
That's awesome.
Wasn't that like was it by Allen's?
It was Allen's was up top and Fox's was in the basement.
Okay. Gosh, so
And Allen's didn't have, all they had was beer, so the guys would come down and get their brown liquor drinks downstairs, and then they walk into a room full of lesbians playing pool.
that was I gotta say that
Josh, apparently,
and me.
That was Josh's spot, guys.
an aspiring guy.
You know, I didn't work at the science library and not where to go to get a good drink. I'll tell you what.
Fair enough. Yeah,
That's amazing. You know, I only know that because I scoured the red and black archives to find the article from when.
I was impressed that you pulled that.
I'm surprised he didn't have. I'm surprised he didn't have the full page spread, like the full episode, because he's got it in box somewhere at Fripp Dog. It's at Fripp Island somewhere.
Yeah, I completely when I saw that on Twitter or whatever, I remember that article visually, and I remember the story. I remember just laughing. Like, I mean, I wasn't there that night because I think it was during the Christmas break.
It was, yeah,
and I wasn't there that night, but I was like, I mean, you see it all the time. It was just like you'd be sitting there and then, you know, dudes roll in there and you're like, oh boy, this is not going to be pretty.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well,
That's
if it
awesome.
makes any, I don't, if in case listeners want to know, I hung out at the same bar that Matthew Stafford tended to frequent, as well as Noshan, but they were extremely chill, actually, back in their day. I mean, you know,
That does not surprise me.
Yeah, besides like, you know, every girl in the bar going and trying to talk to Stafford as soon as he walked in, like they were actually kind of nice to be around. There was no, you know, over testosterone type stuff going on.
I guess he was only not chill when he was at Talladega or Daytona, wherever it was.
Well, I mean, I still call that
Talladega.
chill. He was just having a good time, not trying to fight anybody.
That's true. That's true.
Fair enough.
Well, just so everyone knows, we did talk about Georgia basketball, but it was before we hit record, and we don't want to lay that down on.
Not fit for air.
Is that Jim's version of what's the meaning of life?
Yeah. So like, you know, yeah. So yes, news. You know, a quick news and note: Mike White is the new Georgia basketball coach, and
100% locked in. Dog stats. You heard it here.
We have thoughts, and you can go read everyone's thoughts on Twitter, I think, at this point. So with that, John, do you have any – yeah, John, I'm going to turn it over for you for final thoughts, final questions, meaning of life type things. Did you have
Final
anything?
thoughts? I don't know, man. The only thing that we haven't covered that I told you I was going to cover was the fact that mind-boggling you've never seen an episode of The Sopranos. I can't even believe it. I'm so disappointed.
My bad. And I'm a huge consumer of media, so my bad. I don't have a good excuse. It's like one of those things where I definitely plan to watch it. Josh, I know you said you watched The Wire.
Yeah,
I was a big fan of that as well. So
yeah, I actually remember because I'm old enough to know that, you know, I was watching The Sopranos when it came out, you know, on Sunday nights.
I was,
and I think I was sticking around. I can't remember. I think The Sopranos came on first and The Wire came on later. And I was actually watching The Sopranos so I could actually watch The Wire. It was just like my filler. So I'm not Sopranos. I could take or leave, be honest. But The Wire is one of the two best television shows I've ever saw.
Yeah, The Wire was awesome.
What's the other one? What's the other?
West Wing.
Okay.
That's I mean, West Wing was good, but I'm not putting it over like Breaking Bad.
Politics.
No, it's not.
I'll say this.
It's TV politics. It's okay.
No, if you go back and watch any of those episodes, the stuff that dude was writing in the 90s is wildly relevant today. Yeah.
I need to go back and rewatch because I was a kid actually when The West Wing was on. I'm sorry to make you guys feel old.
I didn't
It's
watch
what
it.
it is, man.
No,
I remember
The
it, but I didn't watch
Wire. Yeah, The Wire. I will vouch for as my favorite series of all time. So we can agree there.
Come at the king.
I did try to watch The Sopranos. I made it through like half of a season. I just wasn't that entertained by it.
John, you're getting killed. You're getting killed by everyone.
Sorry.
I'll go watch it.
I'm getting killed.
I'll go watch it. You with The Sopranos feels to me like Logan trying to get Walker to watch Narcos right now. But
Oh my gosh.
I'll watch it eventually. I love The Wire. Lost is my show, and I know everyone hates the ending or whatever, but that's my show.
It's all right. You know, I felt like
Lost
after
is a
the
good
whole
show.
like Malaysia Flight 370 thing, that like, you know, the ending of like the whole series of Lost in retrospect was a little bit like more like, oh, okay, well, you know, I guess maybe they were onto something. Before we go, I'll shout out Righteous Gemstones. Have you guys watched The Righteous Gemstones on HBO?
I've heard a lot about this show, but I have not actually seen it yet.
Dude, it's hilarious, and it also has like just enough, you know, sanity and some redeeming moments in it to where like you'll randomly find yourself like, oh, that was kind of heartwarming. So check it out because it's like one of the I've enjoyed it more than I've enjoyed anything in a while, especially from a comedic standpoint.
It's wild. My wife watches it, and
it's hilarious.
I've watched it, you know, with her. It's definitely wild.
It's definitely a Sorry Carter show. Yeah. Don't watch it with your kids.
Definitely. Yeah. Put the AirPods in, whatever you got to do. That's
Carter, you're not allowed to watch these shows.
No. You don't want Carter. You really don't want Carter to watch that as a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
Earmuffs and blindfold for Carter while you're watching The Righteous Gemstones. Well, guys, this was awesome. I knew it would be. Always a good time talking to you guys.
You guys too, man. Thanks for having us.
If you don't already, which like I said, or John said, we assume folks listening here are consuming Dawg Sports Live. But if you're not, go subscribe. They are available really everywhere you can get a podcast. And they also are on YouTube. You can follow Graham at Dog Out West. You can follow Josh at dog_stats. They've got great content on the Twitters all the time and over at Dawg Sports, both contributors to Dawg Sports. Whereas John and I, you know, we just we tweet and have a podcast. So,
but you do it very well.
You guys should write for Dawg Sports.
Appreciate it.
You should.
You humble it. You humble us.
Come on, pound out some keys and do some stuff on Dawg Sports. You really should.
Hey, I mean, you know, I used to have a blog. Former
Look, man,
blogger.
if you want to grow
blogger.
the Bulldog Bourbon Social Club, I think that Dawg Sports would be a great avenue for you to do so.
Yeah, that's a home run. That's a home run hit right there.
Yeah, totally.
We'd have to
More
talk
crossover.
We'd have to talk to John about that one.
Awesome.
John who? Never heard
tweets.
of him.
Yeah, other John.
Nope, still never heard of him. I'm kidding.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.